You know how they say you don't realize you're in the good old days until they're gone? Well, I didn't either. My name's Jim. Jim Whitaker. I'm 56, live in a three-bedroom colonial just outside Columbus, Ohio. The kind of house with a porch swing that creaks and a lawn that needs mowing every damn week. I sell industrial equipment, the kind of job that doesn't make for exciting dinner party talk, but it paid for braces, vacations to Myrtle Beach, and the occasional steak dinner at Longhorn. My wife, ex-wife now, is Linda. We met in '92 at a dive bar near campus. She was studying to be a teacher. I was just trying to graduate without flunking out. She had this laugh, like she was surprised by her own joy. Back then, I could make her laugh just by raising an eyebrow. We built a life. 2 kids. Matt, now in Denver working in IT, and Sarah, married with a toddler in Pittsburgh. They call every Sunday the way we taught them. Linda used to hover by the phone, waiting. Me? I'd pretend not to care, but I'd stop whatever I was doing when it rang. Our days had a rhythm. Coffee at 6:30, Linda with her creamer that turned it the color of caramel. Me black. She'd hum along to the radio while scrambling eggs. I'd read the paper, half listening to her plans for the day. Yoga class, grocery run, maybe lunch with her friend Diane. Evenings, we'd sit on the couch, some cop show murmuring in the background while she graded papers and I tinkered with my model trains. Not exciting, but solid. Or so I thought. Looking back, maybe the signs were there. The way she'd sigh sometimes when I talked about retiring, like the idea of endless days with me was a prison sentence. How she started going to book club twice a month, but never mentioned the books. Once, I found a receipt for a wine bar downtown, dated a Tuesday night when she'd told me she was helping Diane with her grandkids. When I asked, she just shrugged. Must have left it in my purse from last week. But you don't look for lies when you trust someone. You assume the sigh is just tiredness, the missed details just middle-aged forgetfulness. You tell yourself marriage isn't fireworks, it's the embers, the warmth you count on. Then, one night, she put down her grading pen and said, Jim, we need to talk. And just like that, the life we built wasn't ours anymore. It wasn't a fight that did it. No screaming, no slammed doors, just a Tuesday night, halfway through Law and Order, when Linda set her wine glass down a little too carefully and said, Jim, we need to talk. You know how you can hear a sentence 1,000 times in movies and still not recognize it when it's aimed at you? My first thought was taxes, or maybe her mother's health. But then she said, I can't do this anymore. And her voice was steady, like she'd practiced. Do what? I asked, even though I knew. She took a breath, the kind you take before jumping off something high. Us. This. I feel like I'm disappearing. I stared at her. 28 years and now she was disappearing. From what? The grocery lists, the laundry? The way I always made sure her side of the driveway was shoveled first? Is there someone else? I heard myself ask. A stupid question. Of course there was. There's always someone else. She shook her head. Too fast. Number, it's not like that. I just need to find myself. Find herself. Christ. She was 54, not some college kid backpacking through Europe. But I didn't say that. Instead, I said, okay, like we were negotiating a used car price. The details after that got blurry. She'd already packed a bag, just for a few days to clear my head. She'd booked a room at the extended stay near the mall. She'd been thinking about this for a while. That one stuck in my ribs. How long? I wanted to ask. When had she decided while I was grilling burgers for the grandkids? When I fell asleep during Jeopardy? Was it the night I came home late from work and forgot to call? Or the morning she caught me staring at some waitress's ass like every other idiot husband in America? But the worst part? The way she looked at me, not angry, not even sad. Just relieved, like she'd been carrying something heavy and finally set it down. I sat on the couch after she left, the TV still mumbling about some fictional murder. The wine glass she'd left behind had a lipstick smudge on the rim, raspberry sorbet, the shade she'd worn forever. I should have thrown it against the wall. Cried. Called my brother. Instead, I washed it and put it back in the cabinet, because somewhere under the shock I knew this wasn't an argument. This was a verdict. and I hadn't even seen the trial. The first week after Linda left, I kept reaching for her in bed. Not in some romantic way, just the dumb automatic movements of 28 years. Rolling over at 2 a.m. to drape an arm across empty sheets, setting the coffee maker for 2 out of pure muscle memory. I'd catch myself halfway through dialing her cell to ask if we needed milk, then remember, oh, right, the house didn't just feel empty, it felt wrong. Like when you walk into a room and forget why, except the room was my whole damn life. I tried to play it cool when the kids called. Your mom's just taking some time, I told Matt, like this was some spa vacation instead of the nuclear bomb that had gone off in our marriage. Sarah saw right through it. Dad, she said, voice tight with that worried tone she'd inherited from her mother. What's really going on? I didn't have an answer. Linda texted sometimes, short, practical things. The electric bill's due Thursday. Diane's bringing by my winter coat. No, how are you? No, I miss you. Just the bureaucratic paperwork of unraveling a shared life. The worst part? I started noticing things I'd ignored before, like how her side of the bathroom sink was suddenly pristine, no hairspray cans or half-used lotions, how the grocery store cashier, the one who'd checked us out every Sunday for a decade, kept giving me pitying looks as I bought single-serving frozen dinners. One night, I found one of her hairpins under the couch. Just a cheap black bobby pin, the kind she'd always used to keep her bangs out of her face when she gardened. I held it between my fingers like some fragile artifact, and that's when it hit me. She's not coming back. I should have been angry. Hell, I was angry, but mostly at myself. For not seeing this coming. For all the times I'd nodded absently when she talked about her book club or her new yoga friends, for assuming for better or worse meant something permanent. My buddy Ray took me out for beers, slung an arm around my shoulders, and said what guys say in these situations. Women, man, who the hell knows what they want? But the truth was, Linda had probably been telling me exactly what she wanted for years. I just hadn't been listening. I started sleeping on the couch, not out of some dramatic protest, just because our bedroom smelled like her shampoo, and that hurt more than the springs digging into my back. The weirdest part? Life kept moving forward. The grass kept growing. My boss kept expecting reports on time. The mail kept coming, junk ads and pharmacy coupons, and once a postcard from some resort in Mexico that Linda must have signed us up for months ago. I stared at that turquoise water and palm trees, and it occurred to me. She'd probably been planning this longer than I'd realized, and I'd been the last to know. The anger didn't hit me all at once. It crept in like a slow fever, first in flashes, then settling into my bones like a permanent ache. I found myself staring at the grocery list still taped to the fridge, Linda's looping handwriting still marking skim milk and whole grain bread like she might come back for them. That's when I did something childish. I crumpled it up and threw it in the trash with more force than necessary, then immediately felt stupid. What kind of man gets worked up over a damn grocery list? Sleep became impossible. I'd lie awake at 3 a.m. cataloging every slight, every moment I should have seen coming. That weekend trip she took with her sister last spring. Had there even been a sister? The new perfume she'd started wearing months before leaving, the way she'd suddenly started locking her phone. Ray took me fishing one Saturday, the way we used to before kids and mortgages. "You look like hell," he said, handing me a beer as we sat on the dock. When I didn't answer, he added, "She's not worth it, Jim." But that's the thing, she was. Or at least the woman I thought I'd married was. I started running in the mornings, punishing my knees on the pavement until my lungs burned. At work, I caught myself snapping at the new kid in sales over nothing. Even my barber noticed the change. "You're grinding your teeth, Jim. Gonna need a night guard if you keep that up." The house became enemy territory. Every room held landmines, her favorite coffee mug collecting dust in the cabinet, the indentation in the carpet where her reading chair used to be. I started eating dinner standing at the kitchen counter like some divorced guy in a bad sitcom. Then came the day I found the receipt. It was stuck in one of her cookbooks, a dinner charge at Luigi's from 2 months before she left, $78 for two, date night prices. Only I hadn't been to Luigi's since our anniversary last year. My hands shook holding that little slip of paper. Part of me wanted to call her, demand an explanation. The other part, the smarter part maybe, knew exactly what it meant. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I got properly drunk. Sat at my kitchen table with a bottle of bourbon and all our photo albums spread out like evidence. Our wedding day, the kids' birthdays, that vacation to the Grand Canyon in 2008. By midnight, I was laughing bitterly at how young we looked, how hopeful, how stupid. The anger crystallized then, sharp and clear, not just at her, but at myself, for trusting, for not seeing, for still loving someone who'd clearly stopped loving me long before she walked out. I woke up the next morning with a splitting headache and the photo album still open on the table. Sunlight streamed through the window, catching the dust motes in the air. For the first time in months, I knew exactly what I needed to do. 6 months after Linda left, I ran into Diane at the grocery store. I was in the cereal aisle, some sad middle-aged guy buying Raisin Bran at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. When I heard that familiar voice say my name, Diane looked different, thinner. Her hair was darker than I remembered, and she had that tight-lipped smile people give you when they don't know what to say. "Jim, how are you holding up?" I wanted to tell her the truth, that I hadn't slept through the night since Linda walked out, that I still woke up reaching for someone who wasn't there. Instead, I shrugged. "Getting by." Diane shifted her basket from one arm to the other. "Linda's not doing so great," she said, like it was some kind of peace offering. I almost laughed. Not doing great? The woman who'd traded in 28 years for happiness was suddenly struggling. I should have felt vindicated, but all I felt was tired. "Yeah?" I said, pretending to compare two identical boxes of granola bars. Diane lowered her voice. That guy she was seeing? Total flake. Left her high and dry after 3 months. Now she's stuck in that tiny apartment over on Elm, working extra shifts just to make rent. I didn't say anything, just stood there holding my Raisin Bran like an idiot, absorbing the news. "Anyway," Diane said, suddenly uncomfortable, "I just thought you should know." I nodded. "Thanks." As I drove home, I kept picturing Linda in some cramped studio, eating microwave dinners alone. The woman who'd once hosted Thanksgiving for 15, who'd filled our home with laughter and the smell of fresh-baked bread, reduced to counting quarters for laundry. Part of me wanted to call her, to say I told you so, to ask if it was worth it. But the bigger part, the part that still remembered how her eyes crinkled when she laughed, just felt sad. That night, I dug out the receipt again. The one from Luigi's. $78 for 2. I'd kept it folded in my wallet like some kind of twisted trophy. Now, staring at it, all I could think was that the price of our marriage? $78 and a plate of fettuccine? I thought about texting the kids. They deserved to know their mom was struggling. But what would that accomplish? More hurt, more drama. They'd already taken sides, whether they meant to or not. Instead, I poured myself a drink and sat on the back porch, watching the fireflies blink in the summer heat. Funny how life works. You spend years building something, only to watch it crumble in an instant. And when the dust settles, there's no grand lesson, no cosmic justice. Just two people sitting alone in separate rooms, wondering how it all went wrong. I finished my drink, went inside, threw the receipt away. Not out of forgiveness, not out of closure, just because I was tired of carrying it around. The strangest thing happened after I threw away that receipt. I started sleeping again, not the dead-to-the-world sleep of my 20s, but real, honest rest. I woke up one morning and realized I hadn't checked Linda's Facebook in 3 weeks. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was living. I signed up for a woodworking class at the community center, something I'd always talked about doing but never had time for when I was married. First project? A god-awful birdhouse that looked like it had been put together by a drunk raccoon, but damn if I wasn't proud of it. My daughter Sarah came over one Sunday and did a double take when she saw my workshop in the garage. "Since when do you know how to use a lathe, Dad?" she asked, running her fingers over the cherrywood bowl I'd been working on. I shrugged. "Since I stopped waiting for life to happen to me." Work changed too. I'd been phoning it in for years, counting down to retirement. But now, I started mentoring the new kid in sales, showing him the ropes. Felt good to be useful again. Even my boss noticed, clapping me on the shoulder at happy hour, saying, "Who lit a fire under you, Whitaker?" I didn't have an answer. Or maybe I did. It was the same fire that had been burning me up with anger months before. I just learned how to use the heat for something better. Then came the day Linda called. Not a text about bills or her mail, an actual phone call. My stomach dropped when I saw her name on the screen. "Jim," she said, and I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. "I was wondering if you still had my grandmother's china set." I almost laughed. After everything, she wanted dishes? But then I heard it, the slight catch in her breath. She wasn't calling about china. She was calling because she was lonely. "I've got it boxed up in the basement," I said carefully. "You want to come get it?" Silence. Then so quiet I almost missed it. "Would that be okay?" I looked around my house, the new books on the shelf, the half-finished projects on the table, the life I was building without her. "Yeah," I said finally. "Just let me know when." After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, staring at my hands. They were different now, rougher, with a few new scars from the workshop, like me. Funny how the world keeps turning even when your heart stops. Funnier still how it starts beating again when you're not looking. Linda came by on a Sunday afternoon to pick up her grandmother's china. I'd left the boxes by the door so she wouldn't have to come inside, but she knocked anyway. When I opened it, she looked smaller somehow, not just thinner, but diminished. The woman who'd once filled every room she walked into now stood on my porch like a stranger, clutching her car keys too tight. "You look good," she said, and I could tell she meant it. I didn't say she looked good too. That would have been a lie, and we were done with those. Instead, I nodded toward the boxes. "It's all there, even the gravy boat you always hated." She laughed, just a little, and for a second it was 1995 again. Us standing in the kitchen of our first apartment, her complaining about unpacking wedding gifts we'd never use. Then the moment passed. She glanced past me into the house, at the cherry wood bookshelf I'd built where her piano used to be. "You've changed things," she said. "Yeah," I said. "Had to." She took the boxes, and that was that. No dramatic confession, no tearful apology. Just two people who'd once promised each other forever, now reduced to a transaction over porcelain plates. After she left, I sat on the back porch with a beer and watched the sunset. I thought about calling Ray, or maybe one of the kids, but some things you need to sit with alone. Here's what I know now, a year after she walked out. Betrayal doesn't heal like a broken bone, clean and straight. It heals like a forest after a fire, slowly, messily, with unexpected green shoots pushing through the ash. I don't hate Linda anymore. I don't love her either. What's left is something quieter. The acknowledgement that we were both flawed people who failed each other in different ways. She chose escape. I chose complacency. Neither is a crime, but both have consequences. The guys at work think I'm some kind of hero for winning the divorce, keeping the house, the retirement account, my dignity. But there's no victory here. Just a life rearranged like my workshop after a long project, tools put away, sawdust swept up, ready for whatever comes next. Sometimes, when I'm teaching the new kid at work how to close a sale or sanding down the edges of a stubborn piece of oak, I think about the man I was a year ago, the one who slept on the couch and cried over grocery lists. I don't recognize him anymore. That's the secret no one tells you about getting older. The heartbreaks don't stop hurting, but you learn how to carry them better. Linda texted me last week, just a "thank you for the china," followed by, "the bowls were always your favorite." I didn't reply, not out of spite, but because some conversations are better left finished. I've got a bird feeder to hang after all, and the morning light's just right for staining wood.